Hello and welcome into another fantasy hockey video. Today, a little bit of a shorter video, only 5 subjects to talk about, but there's a lot of players crammed into these subjects, so who knows, maybe we'll make 10 minutes. I'm hoping to keep it under 10 minutes. I'd also like to apologize. I said I'd have the next video out a few days ago, and I just got a little busy with schoolwork and all that. Hopefully you guys are understanding. You can look past that. Hopefully you don't unsubscribe. Speaking of that, if you want to jump on the hype train, feel free to subscribe. I really appreciate that. Let's get into the first topic, though. And this is brought to me by Gurjot Sidhu, who I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right. Thanks for answering my last question, as always. Would you also rather have Benn or Jack Hughes the rest of the season? Ben wondering if Dallas's condensed schedule is going to be a pro or a con. Now, I think the condensed schedules will be a pro just because these are pro athletes and they're well conditioned to the point they can play these games back-to-back and condensed. Ideally, you don't want that if you are a Stars fan, but for fantasy, I think you'll be fine. But when you're comparing him to Jack Hughes, I think I would rather have Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes seems to be getting better as the year goes on, in my opinion, just from what I've seen. I think the potential is higher than what Jamie Benn can do. You look at who they're playing with. Neither one is playing with anything too special. You got Jamie Benn with Radek Faksa and Denis Gurianov. Sagan's out injured. They're not having Jamie Benn play with Rupe Hintz, who Hintz is a better offensive center than Faksa for fantasy. Hughes, on the other hand, is with a pretty good shooter in Paul Mary and Andreas Janssen, who is a okay player. So neither one of these guys has a ton of help. So they're doing everything and they're on their own. Both have very similar points to game ratio, 11 and 14, 7 to 10. Not that different. If you are value position, Jamie Benn may be a little more valuable since he's a left wing and centers are just more abundant. But if I had to go 1v1, position doesn't matter. I'm putting my money on Jack Hughes to finish higher than Jamie Benn at the end of the year. That being said, though, if you're in a league that counts hits heavy, it might just be Jamie Benn. Jamie Benn does a little bit more all around, but I think I'd lean Hughes just for the potential of him taking off is higher. I think Jamie Benn's more in a decline. If you look at his points in his career, they're just going down. He's 31, but he's aging a little bit sooner than some other players at that age. David Perron, Ryan Brown, I can't remember if you covered David Perron, but he's unbelievably reliable for the past half decade. And that made me wonder because David Perron, he's one of those guys who was just around for the most part. And then all of a sudden, once he got selected in the expansion draft, or I think they got him in the expansion draft, don't quote me, but I think that's how they got him. He just popped off for Vegas with 66 points in 70 games. 2018-19, 46 and 57 for St. Louis, solid. And then last year, 60 and 71. And this year, a point per game. This guy is aging like fine wine, a point per game. And I attribute that to him and Ryan O'Reilly having a great relationship on the ice. They both really feed off of each other well. They're just a good couple. And you can see O'Reilly has 17 points, I believe, in 20 games as well. You look at the last 5 games for David Perron, 5 points. He's just one of those players who, if you've been on the hype train since the Vegas year, you've known. I actually own him in one league. I got him later in the draft. He's a player that people sleep on because he didn't do it early in his career. And I feel like when players start to come on late, it takes a little while for them to get the recognition they deserve. Kind of like a Brad Marchand. It took a lot of time Brad Marchand playing at elite level for people to acknowledge him as elite. People were like, oh yeah, he's scoring, but he's still around. And now people look at Brad Marchand as a superstar. But that didn't happen at first. And I'm not saying David Perron's superstar, but it just took a little longer for people to recognize. And I think people should recognize it now. He's 32. He's playing at the highest level of his career, and there's no reason to think he can't do it for 3 more years or so. Just David Perron appreciation post. If you can get him in your league, just a good, reliable player. Another hard question, but maybe an easy question depending on your stances here. Elijah Cruz, pick 2. Carter Hart, Marc-Andre Fleury, Grubauer, or Lankinen. Now, this is a very interesting one because I think there's a pro and con to all of these goalies. You got Kevin Lankinen, who's playing arguably the best of any of these goalkeepers, just considering the team he's on. But then you got to think about the team he's on. You got Marc-Andre Fleury, who is playing great, but if he's inconsistent, they have Robin Leonard behind him, who can take his spot. Then you got Carter Hart, who just hasn't been playing good this year, but that potential, the Flyers, if they turn it on like they did last year in the second half of the season. And then you got Grubauer, who had a little bit of an injury issue this year, had an injury issue last year. Francouz is alright. I actually don't know Francouz's numbers off the top of my head, but he's there. If I had to rank these guys, though, 1 to 4, it's pretty tough. But I think I'm going to have to ride with the 2 players who are playing good and are on good teams. So, with that being said, I go probably Marc-Andre Fleury and Grubauer, just because, no offense to Kevin Lankinen and how good he's been playing, I feel as though the air has to come out of that Chicago bubble eventually. They are in an easy Central Division, however, so I might be wrong. If you have Kevin Lankinen, you're going to ride him to the ground because he's probably your third goalie to begin with, considering you got him in free agency. He might be playing like your first goalie with how he's been playing. But he had a rough start or two in the last 3 or 4 starts. I remember looking at his page before making the video. I just think I'd rather go Fleury and Grubauer. But I think Carter Hart could definitely turn it around, and I'm not going to bet against Kevin Lankinen because he's just spent money so far in his career. But I think I'd go Grubauer and Fleury. If you have a different opinion, please leave it in the comment section because I'm pretty curious about what you guys think about these 4. They're 4 interesting goalies, so I think this was a great question, Elijah, because it definitely was not an easy one for me to think about. We then move on, and Beta Human, interesting name. Anyway, Couture or Dubois Cats League. Now, I'm going to ignore your Cats League thing because most of my viewers know I'm a Points League guy. But I thought this was a very interesting question for both. But I'm looking for from a Points League perspective, Beta Human, just because that's what I play. So let's talk about Logan Couture. A pretty slept-on player lately because of how crap the San Jose Sharks are. But this is a player who not so long ago was the first-line center on a Western Conference team in the Sharks that went to the Stanley Cup Final. And we know when Logan Couture's on, he's a very hot player who can destroy other teams. He's just one of those players when he turns it on, really hard to stop. He's on the first line in San Jose, which has Evander Kane and Kevin Labanc. Not the best line mates in the world, but they're not the worst. They're serviceable. He's on the first power play unit with Thomas Hertl, Brent Burns, who's a very good power play quarterback, Evander Kane and Labanc as well. Has 16 points in 17 games. So we're talking about a player who's about a point per game player right now, a little under that. Will probably finish under that. If I had to guess in 56 games, he'll probably be in the range of 45 to 55, I'd probably say. Especially with how he's been playing thus far this season. Goals are there. And then you got Dubois, Dubois is an interesting player in my opinion because he's never been the biggest scorer thus far. His reputation is higher than his scoring ability, but that's because of his 200-foot game with how well he is on the ice everywhere. That being said, he went from Columbus, a team that isn't the most scoring, to Winnipeg, which is a team that scores for fun some nights. And he's playing on the first line as a left wing now, which makes this whole conversation completely different with Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler, who are very good point getters. If he is playing there consistently, this is Pierre-Luc Dubois every day of the week. I think it's a little bit of a head scratcher to everyone when you saw Dubois go to Winnipeg. You're thinking, why is Dubois not on the second line with Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers? Or on the second line with Kopp and Ehlers, because they probably have Connor on that first line and Stastny on the third line. And I think it's really just Paul Maurice is trying to get his best 6 players into the top 6. He knows that Paul Stastny is his 6th best forward, and he wants him in the top 6, and he knows he can do that by sliding Dubois to left wing, which gives Dubois left wing status, which, like I said, debate closed. It's Pierre-Luc Dubois if he's a left wing. But if I had to look at these players one-on-one, my money might still be on Couture to outscore him. That being said, Dubois just came off of a small injury. He got 3 points in his first game after injury. The 2 games prior against Ottawa and Calgary, no points. I'm kind of torn because I know Dubois on his own is not offensively as skilled as Couture, but the situation might just be there to the point I might lean Pierre-Luc Dubois, especially if he's the left wing. I hope I answered your question, Beta Human, to the best of my abilities. Ducks. No one asked me about this. I just decided to talk about this because Trevor Zegras is a pretty hyped prospect, and Max Comtois is a guy I talked about. I talked about both these guys. These were both of my guys for sleepers for the Ducks because I like Comtois. I liked what I saw in his trial. I think it was last year for the Ducks before he got sent down. And I just liked what I saw. I didn't know if he was going to stick, but I saw the potential there. And so far, Comtois is living up to that potential. And now Zegras gets added to the mix as of late. And it makes me wonder how long it's going to be until the Ducks are a good team. They have the goaltending. Their defense is kind of okay. It's nothing special. But their offense is one of the worst in the league. And these two really have to produce for the Ducks and produce I shouldn't say quick. There's no real time period. But thus far, Comtois has 13 points in 13 games. He's a pretty good scorer as of late, too. You look in the last 5 games, 5 points. Has 2 back-to-back multi-point games against the Coyotes. You look at Trevor Zegras, too. 13 minutes in his first game against the Coyotes. 15 minutes in his second career NHL game. So you're wondering how much that's going to go up. No one on this Ducks team who is young is going to get restricted minutes. They're not going to be sheltered. They're going to be just, put out there. What are you going to do? And I don't think Zegras is a guy I think you're going to want on your team this year unless you're in a dynasty league. I think Comtois, though, is a guy you're going to want on your team. I just think Zegras, he's not the biggest body in the world, and it does take a little bit to get adjusted to the NHL. It's a very physical league. That being said, extremely talented player. I just think next year is the year where you might see Zegras pop onto some rosters. Still only 19, so do keep that in mind. It's going to take a minute for him to adjust. He's playing on a Ducks team that isn't going to score much. As for Comtois, though, I think he's a very capable NHL player. 22, definitely built for the league. Looks like a very good player. This Ducks team is set on the left wing for a while, I think. And Milano on the third line is not bad. They really just need to get some bona fide centers, and maybe the Ducks can turn around in a year or two, maybe 3. That being said, that's all I have to talk about today. I see I went over 10 minutes because I can talk forever. Thank you for watching if you've gotten to this point. As always, leave a like down below. Comment any questions you have about fantasy hockey. I love to answer viewer questions, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out, and enjoy the hockey as always.